We're going to start looking at how to collect data. Our first option is to collect data in such a way that it produces a biased sample. The data in the sample does not represent the population. The first type of biased sampling are surveys. You question a small group of people to learn about the population. You want to try and randomize to protect yourself from bias. On average, the sample will look like the population, but you also must consider the sample size. You'd like to have a random and representative sample. If you sample everyone, you get what's called a census. Problems with surveys are non-response bias. Sometimes people won't mail back in the forms, and under coverage. Sometimes you'll miss certain sectors of the population. A second type of biased sample would be a census. It's basically a survey that tries to ask everyone in the population. It's hard to complete because it's hard to contact every member of a population. And another problem is that the population will change before the researcher can complete a census. Problems tend to be that census will overcount or undercount the population. You may wonder how it could overcount. Sometimes people will get questioned twice. If you survey everyone, then it's not technically a random sample. And there's also the problem of a non-response bias. Sometimes people don't return the census. The third type of data collection that produces a biased sample is a convenience sample, and this is the one that most people are guilty of. You ask people who stop by, you just ask people you know, you just look around and notice what you observe. It saves time and resources, but the samples are not representative, and the data tends to be homogeneous. People who stop by, they tend to all be alike in a certain manner, or if you just look around at people you know what you've observed, there's some kind of common underlying factor to them. There's not a lot of confidence in these results regardless of how many people you ask. The main problem is under coverage. You're not getting a representative and random sample of the population. So my father forwarded me this email, and I'd like to know, when you read through it, if you can notice what type of sample was used and some possible issues. In 1919, when the flu killed 40 million people, there was this doctor that visited the many farmers to see if he could help them combat the flu. Many of the farmers and their family had contracted it and died. The doctor came upon this one farmer, and to his surprise, everyone was very healthy. When the doctor asked what the farmer was doing that was different, the wife replied that she had placed an unpeeled onion in a dish in the rooms of the home, probably only 2 rooms back then. The doctor couldn't believe it and asked if he could have one of the onions and place it under the microscope. She gave him one, and when he did this, he did find the flu virus in the onion. It obviously absorbed the bacteria, therefore keeping the family healthy. Now, I heard this story from my hairdresser. She said that several years ago, many of her employees were coming down with the flu, and so were many of her customers. The next year, she placed several bowls with onions around in her shop. To her surprise, none of her staff got sick. It must work. Try it and see what happens. We did last year, and we never got the flu. Another thing was that onions and garlic placed around the room saved many lives from the Black Plague years ago. They have powerful antibacterial and antiseptic properties. So coming back to the question, can you identify the type of sample that was used? In this case, it would be a convenience sample. And issues with this email, I tried to bold it so you could really see it right here. It must work. Try and see what happens. We did last year and we never got the flu. It's just sampling people you know. Here we're talking about the doctor, and he came upon one farmer. So it's just sampling the people that he was in contact with. It's not random and representative of the population. It's just asking people you come in contact with. So possible issues, it's not random, and it doesn't represent the population. So it's not representative, which I'll write down here. So not representative of the population. There's more types of bias sampling methods, but these are all the methods that we're going to study.